Hi guys, I'm Tech Valkyrie, and I've had some people ask me what the transition is that I use in OBS when I'm moving between scenes in my stream. So I thought I would just do a quick video to show you what I use and how you can add it to your stream too. So the transition I use is called Move Transition, and it's literally a transition that moves your individual sources around between scenes. So if you have two scenes with the same source in them, such as your webcam, but that source is in a different position for each scene, so it might be at the top for one scene and then down the bottom for another, the Move Transition will move that source into its new position in one smooth movement. If the size of the source changes between scenes, so it might be larger in one scene than the other, the Move Transition will also change the size of the source as it's moving it. Also, if there is a source in one scene that's not in another, the Move Transition will use a smooth movement to make the source appear or disappear. So you can find the Move Transition plugin on obsproject.com. Now this site contains a lot of different plugins for OBS, so definitely check it out. I'll add a link to the Move Transition plugin in the description below as well. And so you just click download and select the correct version for your operating system. Once you have downloaded the zip, just extract all the files to whatever location you like and then run the installer. You may have to bypass some security checks, so just select Run Anyway and continue. Then you need to make sure the installer will install the Move Transition files into the correct OBS folder, which on Windows is likely to be C Program Files OBS Studio. Then hit Next. If it says the folder already exists and if you'd like to install there, select Yes. Then hit Next and Install. Okay, so I've got OBS Studio open, and what you're about to see is that when I change scenes, like I'm about to do right now, I've got this fade transition, so it's nothing that exciting, but we're going to change that. We're going to have that really cool move transition. Alright, so when you have OBS Studio open, what you want to have a look at is this section right here called Scene Transitions. So once you have installed the Move Transition into that OBS Studio folder, the Move Transition should appear automatically in this drop-down. So instead of the Fade Transition, we're looking for something called Move. Alright, so I'm going to select here, Add a Move Transition. Alright, so we can enter the name of the transition. I'm going to call it Move 1. Alright, so there's a heap of different settings that you can play around with, and I do just recommend just play around with it, see what you like the most, because it's really just based on personal preference. But probably the most important thing here is this section up the top. So Move Transition needs to know how a source is the exact same source from one scene to another. And there's 3 different ways that you can tell it that. And I usually use this top option, which says that the source name has to be the same between each scene. So if I've got a Logitech webcam that I'm using in scene 1 and in scene 2, the name of that source has to be the same. They both have to say Logitech webcam, for example. So I'm going to tick that option right there. There are some other options that you can have. So if, for example, a source is called Logitech webcam 123 in one scene, and then it's just called Logitech webcam in another, you can say, okay, if I drop those numbers from that first scene, that name, if that name still matches between both the scenes, then that's the same source. So that's the second option. Also, you might have Logitech webcam in one scene and just Logitech in another, and you can say, okay, if you drop that second word, if you drop the last word in that source name, if it matches something in the second scene, then they're the same source, that sort of thing. But the easiest way to do it is just have the exact same name between each scene. So I'm going to select that top option. You don't really need to worry about the general section too much. I usually just leave that pretty much standard. And then the main settings, let me just pull these up here so you can see this a bit better. The main settings are split into 3 different sections. So this is basically saying, okay, what do you do when you have a source that is going to be in both scenes? So what do you want that source to do? What if you've got a new source that's appearing in one scene that hasn't been in the previous scene? And what do you do when you've got a source that's in the first scene but you want it to disappear? So what do you want those different sources to do? So we might actually start with the appearing items, because this is probably an easier way to show it to you. So basically, how do you want it to ease? Do you want it to ease in and out, or do you want it to ease out? I usually select ease in. So basically we're saying for anything that appears, we want it to ease in to the scene. Then you have an easing function. And so I usually keep this at cubic because it just seems to be the smoothest option, but there's a few different others. For example, a bounce. And basically you're saying, as it's doing that ease in, do you want it to do something else at the same time? So I'll show you what this one does. So as you can see there, it's going to do a little bounce as it comes in. I'll show you again. But I usually leave that on cubic, which says, okay, it's just going to be a smooth transition as it comes in. Do you want it to zoom in? Do you want it to, do you want it to have a zoom when it's happening? So if we turn this on, It just appears at the same size. So there's no zoom function. I usually like to have a zoom function though. Up to you though. Where do you want it to come from? That's the position section right here. So do you want to say, okay, let's have it coming from, let's say the top left. Let's preview that. Yeah, okay, I might leave it at that. As it's doing that, do you want it to do anything else as well? It can also have a cut or a fade. I usually select none, so it's just a smooth transition as it's coming through. So I'm going to leave that as none, and don't worry about the curved. I think that can just sort of change the sort of angle as it comes in. I don't really mess with that. I usually leave that at 0. All right, so we've got anything that appears to ease in. How about things that disappear? So what we're going to do, we're going to make those ease out. So for disappearing items, we're going to select ease out. We're going to leave that as a cubic function as well. You could also do a bounce for that or something like that. Bounce is probably the easiest to show you. So for example, the ones that are leaving, they might bounce as they go. But I usually like to keep it as smooth as possible, so I'll leave that at cubic. Do we want to zoom on this one? You could just have that the one that leaves doesn't zoom. So basically, yeah, just disappears off the side and the new one comes in. I'm going to leave the zoom on, I think. And where do you want it to disappear to? So at the moment it's at center right. You have a whole heap of different options. I'm actually going to try top right and see what that looks like. Yeah, okay. All right, so anything that disappears goes off the top right. Anything that comes in from the top left. We're going to do that. I don't really want any other transition at the same time, so I'm going to leave that as none. So as you can see, there's heaps of different options. Choose whatever you like. Yeah, so it's completely up to you. Once you have the settings that you want, you're going to press OK. And that is literally it. So right now, what you're about to see is a whole heap of different movement happening. And that's it. Anyway, that's it for this video. If you enjoyed it, please be sure to press that like button. And if you'd like to see more, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. If you have any questions, feel free to add a comment down below, or I also stream live on Twitch every Monday, Wednesday, Thursday and Sunday, so feel free to stop by and have a chat with me about it there. Thanks so much for watching, stay safe, and I'll see you next time.